Hi, we're here with Carl Tannenbaum, Chief Economist of Northern Trust. Carl, great to be with you.
Good to be with you.
Carl, you've said that 2018 will be a year full of remembrance. Why?
It's 10 years since the financial crisis, and that decade of separation probably will prompt a lot of reflection. I'll certainly never forget the time I spent at the Federal Reserve during that interval. And it's not just the main events of the fall. We had signs that things were deteriorating all throughout the year. So as we go through the housing correction where house prices actually started to fall, we had problems in some mutual funds in the summertime. Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, the big mortgage agencies, had to be embraced by the government. And then we got to the point in late September where the Fed really had to be very active to put a floor under all of what was going on. So there's a lot to reflect on.
Looking back on it now, what are some of the lasting lessons?
Well, we saw some problems in the strangest places. You never would have thought that a correction in American housing, for instance, would bring down the Icelandic banking system. But what we found is through the links of leverage and investing, that small exposures can be spread over a very wide swath. And that when people assume that prices will only go up, they perhaps take their eye off the ball with risk management. So leverage was excessive. We also did not have the right intelligence. We had different regulators who had different pieces of the puzzle, but weren't able to put it all together. I think we also learned that when somebody starts talking about a new paradigm, you better reach for your wallet because the old paradigm will slap us in the face. And then finally, I think we learned that institutionally it's very, very important to have plenty of capital so that somebody else's problems don't get passed through you to another party.
Well, you mentioned reaching for your wallet. The government stepped in at a variety of points to assist. How expensive were those efforts in the end?
And the initial outlays were hundreds of billions of dollars. And there was all kinds of hue and cry as to whether we had become socialist or whether we'd ever see the money again. Well, I'm happy to report that we not only made the money back, but we made immense profits for taxpayers. I say we as if I'm still in the government. The programs made immense money for taxpayers because they were a form of insurance to make sure that products or markets or financial institutions didn't fail. And when they didn't, the government was able to keep the premiums and never pay out a claim. And even Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, which ultimately needed almost $200 billion on their own, the profits that they've generated for the government since then have far exceeded the initial investment.
Could we have a similar crisis in the future?
Of course. Throughout human history, we've had crises. As much as we might try and prevent them or diagnose them or put barriers in place from them happening, people's memories get short, and so sometimes they'll begin exercising the same behavior that created past crises. We always look for problems where the last crisis existed when we always find out that the next one comes from a different source. And just psychologically, people embrace an upward feeling and they don't want to be reminded that we could have another problem. So it's quite clear to me that we'll have another crisis. Just don't ask me when that will be.
Thank you, Carl, for your time.
My pleasure.